Back then, I thought I was invincible. I had everything a man like me could ever want: power, money, respect, even a feature in Forbes that called me the relentless mind behind the city's fastest-growing empire. My name was Jonathan Pierce, and when I walked into a room, people straightened their backs. When I spoke, silence followed. My company, Pierce Dynamics, was dominating the tech sector, and I had worked 20 years to build it with my bare hands and zero apologies. Every day started the same: tailored suit, precision-shined shoes, a luxury car waiting downstairs, and a perfect espresso in my corner office before 9 a.m. I didn't make mistakes. I didn't deal in feelings. I made decisions, fast, clean, final, and I thought that made me strong. Until the morning she walked into my office. Her name was Elena Ramos, a quiet force in our public relations team. Not flashy, not loud, not one to chase the spotlight. But when she spoke in meetings, people listened. She had an eye for crises and a way of turning bad press into growth. In fact, it was her strategy that had saved our brand from a disastrous PR disaster the year before. I respected her, as much as I respected anyone who kept their head down and delivered. That morning, something was off. I remember I was buried in a report about an acquisition that would triple our valuation. My assistant buzzed and said, "Elena from PR needs a few minutes." "She can wait," I said. But the door opened anyway. She walked in, visibly nervous, but with a strange kind of strength behind her eyes. She was pale, and her hands trembled slightly, clutching a manila folder like it was a shield. "Mr. Pierce," she said, I wanted to speak with you privately." I didn't even look up at first. "Make it quick," I muttered. And then she said it, in the softest, most human voice I'd heard in that building in years. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air like smoke, curling around the corners of the office, filling every inch of space with something I didn't want to name. She continued, quickly, like she was trying to outrun my reaction. "I just wanted to let you know personally. I'll be applying for maternity leave later this quarter. I plan to finish my current campaigns, and I've already drafted a transition plan." But I wasn't listening. All I heard was inconvenienced, distraction, weakness. We were weeks away from finalizing the largest deal in company history. Everyone needed to be sharp, available, ready to jump at any moment. And now, one of my top strategists was telling me she was going to disappear just when we needed her most. I looked up, finally, looked her straight in the eye, and I said the words that would come to haunt me. "Elena, we need people who are all in. Right now, I don't think this company is the right fit for someone in your situation." Her face went blank. Not angry, not emotional, just stunned. Like someone had pulled the floor out from under her, and she was still trying to decide if it was real. "I'm being fired?" she whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She nodded once. Just once. Then turned, walked out, and closed the door behind her without a word. I didn't follow her. Didn't second guess it. In my mind, it was done. Business. Nothing personal. But deep down, somewhere I didn't want to look, something inside me shifted. I didn't know it yet, but I had just made the worst mistake of my entire life. For the first few days after firing Elena, I barely thought about it. There were meetings to lead, contracts to finalize, board members to impress. The merger was dominating every second of my day, and it was going well. Numbers looked great. Shareholders were thrilled. On paper, I was winning. But in the quieter moments, late at night, when the office emptied and the noise died down, her face started to return to me. That look, that moment of disbelief, the way she didn't fight, didn't protest, like she already knew there was no place in my world for someone like her. At first, I shook it off. I reminded myself of the facts. She hadn't been indispensable. Others could take over her campaigns. The company came first. This was how I built my empire, by staying focused and never letting emotions cloud judgment. But when I passed her desk the following week and saw it empty, cleared out, her chair turned slightly away like someone had left in a hurry, a strange ache settled in my chest, one I hadn't felt in years. I didn't want to admit it, so I buried myself deeper in work. But it didn't help that I kept hearing her name. Not from HR or PR. No, they'd erased her quickly, like dust swept off marble. But from the people who really ran the company. The ones who didn't show up in press releases. The cleaning lady who said, "That one from PR was always kind, you know? Always thanked me." Or the intern who asked me, cautiously, "What happened to Ms. Ramos?" She was mentoring me on the crisis playbook. And then the security guard, a guy who'd been there for years, leaned in during a late-night building check and said she used to bring in lunch for the night shift. Every Friday. You knew that? I didn't. I didn't know anything about her outside of spreadsheets and success metrics. She'd been working here for 4 years, and all I could remember was her job title. That night, I sat in my car for half an hour, staring out the windshield as the city buzzed around me. I couldn't stop thinking about how casually I had dismissed her, as if she were replaceable, as if people like her didn't matter unless they were convenient. Weeks turned into months. The merger went through. My net worth spiked. I was named Entrepreneur of the Year. But something hollow had opened up inside me. It wasn't guilt, not yet. It was more like a whisper, a question that followed me everywhere. What happened to her? I tried to find out. Discreetly at first, I asked HR if she'd applied for unemployment. They said no. I searched her name online. Nothing. No updates. No LinkedIn activity. It was like she had vanished. One night, in a moment I'll never forget, I typed her name into a people search engine and hit enter. The result? Elena Ramos, no current address on file. Just gone. Like she never existed. And that's when the guilt finally showed up. Because deep down, I realized something that made my stomach turn. I didn't just fire an employee. I might have thrown a pregnant woman into the street with no job, no income, no support, all because I was too proud, too cold, and too obsessed with winning to see the human being standing in front of me. And by the time I wanted to make it right, she was already gone. It happened on a cold October morning years after I'd last seen her. I had just left a board meeting and was heading to a cafe I rarely visited. Something about the air that day felt strange, like the world had tilted just slightly off-center. My driver dropped me off a block early. I wanted to walk, to clear my head. The cafe was small, tucked between a flower shop and a bookstore. It had the kind of charm you don't expect in the business district. Wooden chairs, handwritten menus, a bell on the door that chimed softly when I entered. I was halfway through reading my messages when I heard a child laugh. I looked up. At the far corner of the room sat a little boy, no older than 6, with a mop of dark hair and big brown eyes that looked hauntingly familiar. He was giggling over a crayon drawing, waving it proudly at the woman beside him. And when I saw her, my breath caught. Elena. She looked different, older of course, more tired around the eyes. But still graceful, still composed, and still with that same quiet strength I remembered. She didn't see me at first. She was too focused on the boy, her son, no doubt. She bent down and kissed the top of his head, tucking a napkin into his collar with a care that stung to witness. A tenderness I hadn't known she was capable of, not because she wasn't kind, but because I'd never taken the time to see it. And then, as if sensing my eyes on her, she turned. Our gazes locked. Time stopped. She froze for a split second. Her mouth parted, barely. I stood there like an idiot, clutching my phone, completely unprepared for what came next. She didn't storm out. She didn't yell. She simply stood up, placed a hand gently on her son's back, and walked toward the exit. No drama. Just quiet, deliberate distance. But something in me panicked. I followed her outside, not knowing what I would say until the words tumbled out. Wait, Elena, please. She stopped, slowly turned. She didn't smile. She didn't frown. She just looked at me, really looked, and said, "Why?" That single word hit harder than any insult ever could. I wanted to apologize, I stammered. For what I did. For not seeing you. For not helping. I was wrong. I was cruel. She blinked. You were. Her voice was calm. Not bitter. Not cold. Just firm. I didn't come here to cause a scene, she continued. This is my neighborhood now. That cafe's near our school. I come here so my son has someplace quiet to draw after class. That's my life now. She paused, then added. I built it without you. I survived without you. And I don't need anything from you. I nodded, slowly. I didn't try to justify myself. I didn't offer her money or some grand gesture of redemption. All I could say was, I'm sorry. She gave a sad, almost tired smile. I know, she whispered. But some apologies come too late. And just like that, she turned and walked away, her son's small hand tucked into hers like an anchor. I watched them disappear down the street. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel important. I just felt human. For weeks after that encounter outside the cafe, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Not just Elena, but her son. That little boy's laughter, The way he beamed up at her with absolute trust. The way he held her hand with such confidence. I didn't know his name. I didn't know where they lived. But I couldn't stop picturing his face, because in some strange, haunting way, I saw myself in him. Not in how he looked, but in what he represented. The future I discarded. The life I had once touched, then turned my back on. I began to have trouble sleeping. I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, hearing the echo of her words, "I built it without you." And it crushed me, because she had. She had taken nothing, no job, no partner, no support, and created something beautiful, something stable, something I could never have bought her, no matter how many millions I had made since. I didn't want to interfere. I didn't want to barge into their world with my guilt. But I also couldn't let it in like that. So I started small, quiet things. A donation to the cafe school art program, where her son apparently drew every week. No name, just anonymous support. A new playground installment at the park nearby, the one I later found out was their weekend hangout. I even offered a scholarship fund under an alias, named after my late mother, knowing Elena would make the connection. I didn't expect anything in return. It wasn't about redemption anymore. It was about acknowledgement, about finally learning what it meant to care without expecting something back. And then, one day, months after our last meeting, I received a letter, handwritten, from her. No return address, just my name, in her steady, unmistakable handwriting. Inside were only a few lines. "I know what you've done, Da." He smiles more now, Da. "Thank you for finally seeing him." I sat in my office, letter in hand, and cried. Really cried. Not from sadness, not from shame, but from something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years, relief. She didn't forgive me fully, I knew that, but she saw my effort. And for the first time in my adult life, that was enough.